All right, everybody, welcome. Hello, everybody, and welcome today. I'm so excited to be here with you. So first of all, I would like to say hello. My name is Cecilia Laston, and I am your SkillsUSA National Parliamentarian. Welcome to Pour the IndusTEA. It's going to be such an amazing event today. So today is going to be super eventful, and we are going to have a super fun, super amazing construction and architecture party panel where we're going to raise the roof. Awful joke, I know, but hopefully you guys found that at least a little bit entertaining as I did. All right, so today we have 4 special guests joining us. So let me introduce you to our wonderful panelists today. So first, we have the wonderful Miss Roshana Harris, an HR professional with over 14 years of experience. Her current position as Director of Talent Acquisition and Development allows her to provide a strategic vision with a focus on how to attract, train, retain, and develop workforces. Next, we have Mr. John Schul, who serves as a VP of certification at the National Roofing Contractors Association. John has designed and facilitated the construction industry since the mid-1980s. It also has served 23 years for NRCA as an educational staff member. Next, we have the wonderful Stephen Pomerank. Stephen enrolled at an ITT Tech, an ITT Tech of Drafting and Design and got his associate's degree, and later got a bachelor's degree. Throughout his 10-year career, Stephen has been lucky enough to learn and collaborate with a wide variety of different professionals throughout the residential construction industry and continues to learn more skills every day. Last, but certainly not least, we have the wonderful Trevor Kimlick. Trevor is a senior merchant at Harbor Freight Tools with over 13 years of retail experience. He graduated from Robert Morris University in Chicago, Illinois. His main concentrations in retail has been building materials, hardware, power tools, and now he works with lighting, electrical, and even security. So now that we have introduced our wonderful guests today, I hope that you all are just as excited as I am. So in just a moment, we are going to dive into some questions today. But just a helpful little reminder to everybody, so you all are prepared. Throughout the session, I'm going to be asking my own questions right away, but feel free to drop down in the Q&A session questions that you have yourself, because we are going to get to those later. So feel free. So now that we have introduced, I guess, I hope that you all are super excited to dig deeper into their journey into the industry. So now let's get into this wonderful panel and let's get into all that bonus information that is going to help you become career ready. So let's begin. So first of all, today I'm going to do this in my own kind of way to make this as fluently as possible. So I have 8 questions for each of our panelists to answer. So the first question that I have, and we will start with the wonderful Trevor Kimlick. The first question that I have for you is, what coursework did you have to take to prepare you for your career?
So as you mentioned, I got my bachelor's in business management at Morris University, but what really prepped me for the success in my career were a lot of the trade courses that I took through high school and that I actively participated to pay for my college. And that was, just general carpentry, drywall, construction. That actually was what got me through my college years and enabled me to thrive in this industry and relate that experience back to our customer. So.
All right, thank you so much for that answer. And next, if the wonderful John Schul will answer that same question, I'll repeat it one more time. What coursework did you have to take to prepare you in order for your career? Oop, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. What kind of coursework did I take in preparation for my career? Early on, I think the most valuable coursework, the classroom instruction I learned in high school in physics and mathematics, surprisingly how those applied disciplines played into my career to better understand how to design and install roof systems. They are more complex than you would think, and without those foundational knowledge and skills, would have really been a struggle. So I strongly encourage you to focus on those things early in your career. So.
Thank you so much for that answer. And next, with the wonderful Ms. Rashana Harris answered the same question. Let me know if I need to repeat it.
Yeah, so I guess, thinking back, since I do a lot around workforce development, certainly having a HR background, around adult learning and handling conflict is certainly important. But specific to this industry, because it's different than the other ones that I've worked in, really just understanding operations. And so getting out into the field and going through operator qualifications, getting my OSHA 10, OSHA 30, and really just understand, how to fuse two pieces of pipe together. That's been the most important thing that I think that I've learned as it relates to my current job.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, would Stephen answer that for me?
Hi. So I took an introductory drafting course in high school, but no other courses prior to enrolling at ITT. And then when I was at ITT, I took a variety of drafting and design courses across multiple programs, including AutoCAD, Inventor, and Revit.
Wonderful. All right. So now that each of our panelists has answered that first question for us, we're going to move on to question number 2. So the question, and I will have, again, who will be the lucky one to answer? Let's go with the wonderful Mr. John Chill to answer this one for me first. The question is, how has your role changed from when you first began in the industry to where you are today?
Well, that's could take an hour to explain that. The very short version is I started in this industry when I was 19 years old. With very little knowledge about the industry. My role has changed from a warehouse gopher, excuse that expression, someone who swept the warehouse and chased after materials and did things for a roofing contractor, to the position I have now with the National Roofing Contractors Association, impacting the lives of workers across the entire roofing industry supply chain. Going back and getting a master's degree in instructional design as an adult helped me do that. My current role, becoming an authorized OSHA outreach trainer for OSHA 10 and OSHA 30, those are the things that create the opportunities to advance your career throughout the course of as you grow in your industry. For sure, my role now, after 40 some years, has changed from gopher to where I'm at now, through continuing desire and pursuit of professional development at every step of my career.
That's a great answer. And yes, you have a ton of experience, and that's awesome. All right, so will be wonderful. Stephen, answer this question for me as well. Is how has your role changed from when you first began in the industry to now?
So when I started, I was an entry-level drafter that mainly worked on copy jobs in order to learn the basics of structural engineering design. I had no construction knowledge whatsoever, could barely tell you what a 2x4 was. I was also tasked with some 3D design projects just based on what I learned in school. But as I began to comprehend more of the engineering side, my role and responsibilities grew. I became a lead designer, then an assistant team lead, and eventually I was put in charge of the whole CAD design team. So that's kind of how my progression went.
That's amazing. All right. Well, Mr. Shauna Harris, answer for me next.
Sure. So I don't have 40 years of experience like my buddy John here, but even in the 6 years that I've been with my current company, I started kind of in a almost entry level, I would say, kind of HR position. We were at the point where most of our hiring was done through referrals. We weren't reaching out to tech schools. We weren't using our community. And now in a couple promotions and relocation across the country later, my role is now focused on doing things like this, right? Where I get to go out and meet with SkillsUSA and other industry organizations. I can educate, students before they're making those choices around what it is that they want to do, and then helping them understand, the career path, the training, the certifications that they need in order to be successful. But then to also know, hey, you can also do something different in the same industry. So now I spend more of my time just kind of crafting what that strategy is and getting all of my other managers and leaders, along the way to help support and go out and talk to those students as well.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Trevor Kimlick.
Yeah, so I'll answer from a merchant's point of view and how this role has evolved since I've been in the industry. A lot of things have changed. When I started in this industry, we didn't have a small competitor that we call Amazon. And so we've really had to evolve the way that we think to get products to the shelf in a timely manner, offer options and variances of quality to allow a wide, diverse range of customers to step up into the product that offers them the most value. So time to shelf and a wider range of selections is probably what's evolved the most in a merchant role, especially in the power tool industry. And again, just going up against big box competitors like Home Depot and those guys, and combating their e-com sales at a brick and mortar level.
Awesome. Thanks so much, you all, for answering that question again. And now we're going to move on to question number 3. So to answer this for me first, we're going to go back to Stephen. And the third question that I have for you is, what is one thing that you wish you knew before starting in your career?
I wish I knew more about the amount and variety of jobs available to me in this industry, such as the different engineering disciplines, along with the numerous things that go into construction, because going into school and kind of coming out, I didn't really know much about home building or anything like that. No one was really coming to my school and talking about those sorts of things. And the kind of stuff that's available today wasn't as widespread available.
And how wonderful that we have SkillsUSA now to help show everybody the potential and how much is offered in truly the world of work. All right, so next to have this answer for me, could we do the wonderful John Shell?
Sure, thank you. One thing I wish I knew was how much fun it was to be working outdoors, getting views of the world from rooftops that you would never get inside a factory or inside a machine shop or in an office space. I was raised an outdoors person, camping, backpacking, hiking, and whatnot. And just that passion for the outdoors allowed, this career allowed me to actually be on roofs. Similar to the other panelists who've already mentioned, the diversity of career opportunities were very much unknown early on in my career. And the growth of technologies in our industry today, no one could have projected that. Having roofing systems that have integrated solar photovoltaics, growing gardens on the roofs, for restaurants now have natural gardens on roofs. I mean, the diversity and sustainability and technology have exploded in the last 10 or 15 years. So had anyone known that in advance, I probably would have been a lot more wealthier, if I knew that 40 years ago. But be that as it may, it's been a blessing and a privilege to grow along with this industry over the years.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And next, will Trevor answer this for me?
Yeah, I'm going to answer a little high level. In the corporate world, I think one thing I wish I would have known before getting into it is you're never going to get the promotion that you don't ask for. And that if you don't know what your worth is, that to think that you don't deserve that next position. And the importance of showing your interest and your passion in your career, you'll never get that promotion unless you show that you're worth it and you ask for it. And that's something that you should go into it day one knowing what you're worth.
That's awesome. That's really good advice too, knowing exactly what you're worth and going off and getting what you deserve. All right, and last but not least, will Ms. Harris answer this for me?
Yeah, I think before getting into the industry, I wish I knew how small our community is, not just in, let's say, the construction sector, but even in the energy sector where my organization sits. which is just a reminder that all of our relationships and the relationships that we build, whether they're internal, external, vendors, we're going to run into each other again. And so it's just really important to have really good relationships, even if it's just in passing, because chances are you're going to need that person or that person's going to need you later on down the road.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So now moving into question 4. So I'm going to have Mr. John Shale answer this for me first. The question is, what was your first professional experience and how did it benefit you to where you are today?
Sure, that's a great question. My first experience was working for a roofing contractor, actually getting on roofs, having the opportunity to understand the context that provided for the rest of my career. I can be removed from the roofs and be a design professional, an engineer and architect, but failing to see how things actually work, how they actually get installed, how they smell, how they feel. Without that intimate knowledge of the industry, any position is in the industry, in the entire supply chain, is going to be challenged and dependent on working with a lot of the other subject matter experts to get your work done. So empowering oneself through that where the rubber meets the road experience, hands-on experiences, working with materials, working as part of a team with the crew is invaluable to teach me how to work together as a team in the rest of my professional career as well. So those are huge benefits, I think, in entering any industry, to have that team environment, all working towards a common goal, as well as the context of the industry that you're in, where the work actually gets done.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Next to answer this question, will Trevor Kimlick answer it for me? I'll repeat it one more time just because it's kind of a long one. What was your first professional experience and how did it benefit you to where you are today?
So I graduated in if a lot of the students will be too young to remember, but I graduated pretty much at the height of the 08-09 recession. So there was not a lot of career opportunities in the corporate world at that time. Everyone's pulling back. I worked for a home improvement retailer in the Midwest called Menards. It gave me the opportunity to manage about 10 hourly workers, and being right out of college, that gave me great management experience. You're handling a whole wide range of age and diverse backgrounds to be able to manage that. And not only that, get to really know and understand how a consumer thinks. Being on the floor level, selling to them on an everyday basis. I was so fortunate to manage multiple stores of Menards throughout the Chicagoland area, and have that job before I took the next corporate steps going up into Menards corporate. And having that store experience and brushing shoulders and elbows with the consumer on a daily basis, it paid its way off in gold, because I could put myself in the customer's shoes and understand what value means to them and what they want out of their products. I wouldn't replace it for the world.
That's awesome. I love Menards. Save big money. Great place. I am from Minnesota, so Menards is a big thing here.
Yep. Very
All
cool.
right. Next to answer that same question will be Ms. Rashana Harris.
I guess my first real professional experience where I think I got a really good lesson, similar to Trevor, kind of did the big box retail thing. I participated in Target's leadership program. Prior to that, I was in the Army, right? So I was very accustomed. I'm already a D-type personality, so I just want to get things done and I drive for results. And that works well in retail sometimes, but having to manage people in different departments that might not report to me, and also coming together again with all of those different personalities, I really had a tough lesson in leadership and learning how to scale that back a little bit, ensure that people are coming along with me, ensuring that they understand the whys. And I can do that and still stay true to my personality and not feel like I have to be somebody else. And so that was probably one of the best kind of leadership lessons that I've learned that carries, through with me even till this day. I am unapologetically transparent, but I'm also very, of course, tactful in the meantime. So there's a way that you can do both.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Stephen Pomerank.
So my first professional experience was with an engineering firm that hired me while I was still pursuing my bachelor's degree. And seeing the opportunities that were provided to me as I, based on like the skills I developed, based on the hours I put in, it just kind of gave me the confidence to know I could make it in this field. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, not having any construction experience or knowledge, I was kind of, especially like 19, 20 years old, I was very hesitant and worried that, am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to learn? I'm going to be working with, adults basically, coming from high school and stuff. But as time went on, I just realized I was capable of learning the information I needed in order to succeed. And that helped me grow into my roles. That gave me confidence. I do know what I'm talking about. I can learn this new information. I can pass it on to new people. And so I would say that was really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that question. So now we are going to move on to question number 5. And this one is a really fun one. I like these ones because it kind of shows real life stuff. So to answer this first for me, we'll go right back to Ms. Roshana Harris. So question number 5 is, tell us about a time a mistake happened in your workplace and how did you overcome this challenge?
That could probably honestly be any time, really putting me on the spot here. I think one thing that I've struggled with in the past from a mistake standpoint is, so I very much like my teams to feel autonomous, right? Like I'm not a micromanager. I want them to feel like they get to own their process and have their value. There's a fine balance between that, right? And being too hands off to where, employees feel like they aren't being supported or don't have what they need. And so I trusted an employee on my team to run a project from start to finish. Come to find out, they missed several key steps that ended up, having us to push back some target dates on a bunch of other things. And when mistakes happen, what can you do but take accountability for it, right? And even though, again, I left somebody else in charge of it, at the end of the day, I was responsible for it. And so that was me having a conversation with my boss and my CEO to say, hey, you know what? I dropped the ball. Here's what I'm going to do to fix the situation, this current situation, but this is also what we're going to do moving forward to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And I think that's also too where, as a leader, we build some of our credibility. None of us are perfect. We're always going to stumble along the way. But as long as we aren't repeating those same mistakes and we actually are learning from them and then sharing that learning with other people, right? That's where we kind of elevate ourselves and we gain the trust of others.
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much for answering that. So the next to answer this for me will be Trevor Kimlick. I'll repeat it one more time just because, again, it's kind of a longer one. So tell us about a mistake that happened in your workplace and how did you overcome this challenge?
So I'll give an example of my first experience at Menard's headquarters, where I rolled out a massive fencing display that was projected 15 feet in the air. It wrapped around 75 feet each way. You can still see them in the stores today. And we built this beautiful, over $1 million display so that people can properly shop fence panels. And we did all the signage and POP and point of purchase material. So we went back and we started getting customer complaints that there was a lot of dimensional errors on some of the fence panels. Well, going back and redoing all that POP and when I say POP, the signs and the merchandising, that's a very expensive task. So it was lack of detail on my part. One of the biggest learnings that I will ever remember, and because it will not happen again, this is a very expensive mistake, but owning up to it, number one, is key, and being transparent. Number two, being fully transparent and accepting whatever may come from that. But number three, again, it is a great learning. Learn from it. Don't let it happen again, and you'll be better off for it. If you're not failing, you're not trying. So remember that.
Some great advice in there. So next to answer this will be Stephen Pomerank.
All right, so I made the mistake of not double checking my work prior to submitting it. And in our field, we typically print these big, huge set of plans, and the engineer has to sign off on them, send them to the field, send them to the client, send them to the county. And it got caught by the engineer as they're signing it. And they were like, hey, why didn't you take care of this? This was on your marks. And luckily it didn't lead to, loss of materials, loss of time, the client wasting time or money trying to fix it. And I would say it was like a humbling experience, because as I grew in my role, I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Like, I checked that. But then you always got to remember, double check, like make sure that you've done everything you said you're going to do, because when people rely on you, they're expecting you to hold up, to that level of accountability. And from then on, I just learned, hey, make sure I double check everything I do, triple check if I'm really unsure. And that just I kind of took that and was able to pass it on as I kind of grew in my role. I could talk to the employees on my team and say, hey, you're not the only one this has ever happened to. I may look infallible, but it happens to everyone. The main thing is, like everyone else is saying, own up to it. Don't push it off on somebody else, and learn from it.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much. And last but not least, John Shell.
Thanks. First, I want to say hindsight is always 2020, as they say. And I really appreciated the comments that Roshana made about pertaining to leadership. That was my biggest error early in my career. I was promoted to a roofing crew foreman. About a month into my new position, I screwed up big time. We were removing the roof over the floor of where the computer servers were for a very large retail organization. And a storm started moving in. I went at that job aggressively, thinking my role as the crew leader was to be really productive, really knock out the job. And I was going to prove to most of the guys were much older than me on the crew. So they just followed what I said, and in moves this storm, which would have cost us, if not tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars had we destroyed those servers. They didn't say a word. They knew what to do. I didn't know what to do. They had that roof covered and waterproofed within a half an hour. And just as they finished up, it poured buckets. It would have lost the entire building, let alone the server room. My lesson in that is that my job as a leader is not to prove anything. It is to serve my crew, lean into their skills and expertise, and make sure I provide them what they need to do their job. They know a lot more than I did about doing the job. And that is a lesson that stays with me to this day. A leader is someone who serves the people they lead, not takes control and bosses them around, tells them what to do. That's a lesson I think everyone is in a position of leadership in one form or another, regardless of the level of employment they are in. So that concept of true servant leadership is something that has helped grow my career and advance my positions over the years tremendously. So that is the lesson learned from that error. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And just in general, you kind of gave me the perfect little segue into the last question from the questions for the entire panel. So talking about leadership, what are the most successful attributes of a leader in today's workforce? So to answer this for me first, we'll go to Mr. Trevor Kinley.
Yeah, I honestly want to echo what John said there too. I think it's so important to today's time that you're not a sole decision maker as a leader. We have a motto at Harbor Freight Tools, and it's to leave your ego at the door. And that means you value everyone's opinion, their experience, the diverse backgrounds that help you are the tools to make proper decisions. Yes, at the end of the day, as a leader, that decision's on you, but you utilize the tools in your basket and find the strengths in all your employees or your team. And I can't emphasize it enough. Pool your resources to add to your strengths. And well said too, John. I couldn't agree more.
All right, and to answer it next for us all is Ms. Roshana Harris.
Yeah, again, John really hit the nail on the head. From a leadership perspective, I think one, people interchange manager and leader, and they're not the same thing. And I think it's really important to understand the difference between those two. You know, a leader is somebody that's going to, it's the art of struggling, right? And getting people to want to struggle with you, right? And it sounds crazy, but listen, work is a struggle, right? We always have projects and different things going on. And sometimes it goes the way we want it to go, and sometimes it doesn't. You know, particularly thinking about COVID and my whole team being remote, where I would normally spend, you know, X amount of time doing one thing or another. Honestly, now I spend more time checking in with my team to ensure that they have the tools that they need, the resources that they need, that I'm removing any roadblocks. And even if it's, hey, like I've been in my house for 2 weeks and I'm going crazy looking at the walls. All right, what can I do to help do that? Let's do virtual trivia with the group, whatever that is. And so there's also a perception that leaders hoard their talent, right? What's the point of me developing and coaching all of these great people on my team for them to only still be in the same position? It's my job to help them reach their full potential, whether that's working for me or whether that's going to work for Trevor at Harbor Freight Tools. If that's what you want to do, it's my job to help you get there. And I think that's often missed from a leadership perspective.
Great answer. Thank you so much. And next to answer this will be Stephen Pomeroy.
So I think one of the most successful attributes is to lead by example. And, you know, that could be all kinds of things. Like John said, it doesn't mean you have to be doing the work. But if you're going to preach accountability, you have to be accountable. If you're going to preach hard work, your team has to see you putting in the hard work. And I've been lucky enough to work with and for individuals who did just that. And you can see how it affects the people around them. And it usually leads to buy-in from like their whole team. And it just kind of, you know, it can inspire you by like, okay, oh, wow, I'm leaving like at 6 o'clock and they're still here. They really mean that, you know, we're trying to get this project out by tomorrow. You know, it's on them to make sure they, you know, as a leader, they get it done. But I need to do my part to help the team get it done. And I think it was a big thing I learned. I always felt like my best managers were the people that I could, you know, see leading by example and just giving a good example for everyone to kind of follow.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. And last but not certainly least, you all kind of echoed him in the last question, so we'll jump back to him though, is John Shale. Oop, you gotta unmute yourself too.
Did it again. Okay. One piece of advice that I'd really like to give is when you enter a career in any industry, in any track, trust your teammates, trust your leader, learn as much as you can. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. This is kind of echoing what others have said. You know, the concept of failing fast and failing often with accountability, but being inquisitive, asking good questions, and you will rise to a position where your passions lead you in a way that you hadn't even expected. Finding that career in any industry track, specific track, is only going to happen if you really look deep into the opportunities in that industry. In the roofing industry, there are so many new technologies, so many new systems, so many new computerized equipment and stuff that there's so many opportunities. Until you get into an industry and really do the hard investigative work up front before you're going to find something that really resonates with your passions and your abilities, and then latch onto it and continue your pursuit and being, you know, always be alert, always ask good questions, and be open-minded about the answers you are receiving. So that's pretty much generally it.
Thank you so much for that wonderful advice. So now we're going to dive into something a little bit deeper because everybody doesn't really know too much about you guys except for the short bio that I had to give them. So now we're going to dive into some individual questions. So he's right here, at least on my screen. So we're going to start with John. So you have facilitated the construction industry for many years. Why is hands-on training so important in today's workforce?
That's a really good question. I alluded to this early in this conversation that as you study and develop your knowledge base about the industry you work in, the ability to apply that knowledge can only be transferred, can only happen to develop your skills and ability through interacting, applying that knowledge. And in the case of construction, especially roofing, it is playing with the integrated photovoltaic shingles. No longer big solar panels on a roof. The shingles actually contain the PV component in it, and knowing how to interconnect those and knowing how to attach them without damage. I mean, unless you can design, you can be an electrical engineer and design a rooftop PV system. That doesn't qualify you to know how they actually get installed successfully. Without that hands-on experience, you're just not going to be able to do the job. You may design it, but whether it actually works or not, you don't know until it actually gets installed. So that's just one example. So the hands-on skills that support, that the knowledge base you have developed supports. Remember, keep in mind, knowledge prepares you for future work, for your future. Hands-on skills develops you to do the tasks that are in hand right now that you have to do. So that basic concept is critical. Without that hands-on skills training, another thing, hands-on skills training on fall protection, for instance, in safety. You fall off the roof, you die. Not a good scenario, or you can get seriously injured. Knowing how to tie off properly, how to adjust your harness, how to attach your harness and your lifeline, all those safety components, you could study that till the cows come home, and if you don't know how to actually do it, serious consequences. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for answering that first individual question. So now moving on to the next one, it is for Trevor Kimbeck. How has having so many years of retail experience aided in career with Harbor Freight Tools?
So I alluded to this a little bit earlier in my introduction. The years that I've had in retail and my experience, again, accompanied with my trade knowledge and how the actual trade industry works, especially in construction and carpentry, is it gives me an edge up on my peers. I truly can get into my customer's shoes and know what value means to them, know what they need in their product offerings that are actually going to contribute to their livelihood, the tools that they use to make a living. I have a passion for what I sell and the products that I assort. And that gives me an edge over my peers because I'm not out selling widgets. I'm here selling power tools, and I love what I'm doing. So having that experience and that know-how, and again, being able to put yourself in the customer's shoes and understanding what value is, it's, again, irreplaceable experience. And your customers answer most of your, will teach you the most. Your customers will teach you the most about the industry. I say that.
Great, thank you so much. That was a fantastic answer. So the next question that I have is to Stephen. So you have led a design team for projects all across the country. What has been the most rewarding part of this job?
I would say two things come to mind for this question. The first is seeing the growth and development of people who were new to this industry and weren't sure if they could succeed. And that just reminds me a lot of my path. And I just enjoyed helping others grow and kind of seeing their development and seeing as they kind of became more confident. I worked a lot with, kids that were either out of high school or coming straight out of college. And, what we do is a little bit of a niche, and, you don't really learn these skills necessarily in college per se. You learn them on the job, kind of like John, and seeing them get it and then being able to take their knowledge and train the next, people that we hire. The second thing is just seeing the physical results of the plans I helped put together. One of my best friends bought his first house a few years ago, and it happened to be a house that I designed. And I literally went over there to the housewarming party with the plans in hand. I was like, yeah, you got this right here. This is over here. I could walk through this house blindfolded right now because I know these plans so well. I would say that was pretty rewarding.
That's super cool how you were able to just go and be like, oh yeah, I can tell you exactly where your bathroom is right now. That's super funny. All right, so last but not least to Ms. Vijana Harris. You have had over 14 years of experience. What is the greatest thing that you have learned in your many years?
The greatest thing that I think I've learned, we've talked a lot about leadership and stuff already. And for me, that's kind of the start and end point for any industry or any job. I think my greatest kind of key learning is that while I may have had a quote unquote more traditional path to going to school and gaining employment, joined the military kind of like in between all of that, but I probably would have done some things differently. And I think that as I talk with students and other employees and my nieces and nephews, I think my greatest thing is to say, hey, first, figure out what you're passionate about, and then we can figure out how to get you there. That doesn't always mean as soon as you graduate high school, you need to go drop $100,000 to go to a 4-year university for something that you may or may not use. Let's focus on those actual skills and stuff. So I think that's really been one of the biggest takeaways that I've had in just my experience. And it really shapes the way that I have conversations, with others. Start with the end game, and then let's figure out how to get there. Let's not just arbitrarily, say we're going to college because, yeah, that might be mom or dad's expectation, but let's have a better understanding of why and what skills you're going to get out of it.
Yes, thank you so much for answering. So I have noticed briefly that a whole bunch of people, all of you are maybe answering some of the Q&As in the chat or in the little thing, which is really cool. So there are 3 that have not been answered yet, but I'm going to do one more round. Ooh, now there's 4. One more round of these individual questions, and then we're going to get into the last 10 minutes of doing these Q&As. So I will answer these last ask you guys these last questions, and then we'll move on to those Q&As. So this next question that I have is for Stephen. You have judged the SkillsUSA drafting contest in Jacksonville. What has been your favorite part of this job?
I would say one of my favorite parts of judging the contest was just seeing the variety of ways that the students would attack the same problem. So they're given, hand sketches and whatnot, and they need to create floor plans, elevation views, stuff like that. And just seeing how they go about attacking it, how they go about, okay, how do I want to do this first? What's the most efficient way to doing it? Or, what do they know best? And so kind of seeing that was just, I don't know, it was just really interesting to me. And then I would say like just developing my skill at determining distances and stuff just made it interesting when I would see them draw stuff like almost spot on, especially when they were not getting dimensions. That was just, it's just amazing to see like everything they were able to learn and apply in the competition.
My goodness, I'm having so much trouble apparently unmuting. All right, thank you so much for that answer. So now I'm seeing a couple more of the Q&As popping up, and I want to make sure we have enough time to answer those. So I'm going to do the Q&A first, and if we have time, I'll go back to these individual questions. But I just want to make sure that everyone watching has a chance for their questions to be answered first, more than mine. So I'm going to read them off, and feel free if you have any of the answers to just unmute yourself, because I think it's better for you all just to answer the ones that you can answer instead of me just calling on someone. So the first one that I'm seeing is from Maggie Lemon. I have no idea if I'm saying that correctly, but do you recommend an associate's degree for drafters, or do you think that they can go straight into the industry with 2 years of high school drafting and knowing some software?
So if no one objects, I can answer this. I would say you can definitely go straight to the industry based on what you learned in high school. Honestly, there's some local high schools here that have drafting academies or construction or engineering academies, and either they start as interns in their junior or senior year, or we hire them straight out of high school, a year out of high school, and they're able to come in and apply their knowledge and also build on it. I wouldn't say it's necessary to have, an associate's degree, depending on maybe the software or program or specific field. Maybe it could be more useful if you're a little bit more specialized, but I would definitely say you have a good shot at getting a really good entry level job straight out of high school.
Awesome, thank you so much. So diving into the next question into the Q&A, it is from Torin Keon, I believe is how you say it. So have any of you gone through a period of time when it was hard to find motivation for your trade/job? If so, what advice would you tell yourself then? And to all the people watching as well.
This is John. I'll take a stab at answering that. That's a very personal question. And the variables, I think, that go into it, finding motivation for your trade or for your job, at least in my personal experience, in those lulls in my career, when I felt I wasn't going anywhere, I didn't have a future, I really wasn't inspired, what triggered me out of it, what really jolted me out of it, was looking for something different within the industry. And I can tell you a period 24 years ago when I made the move to the National Trade Association from a contractor, that's what provoked me. It's like, what else is there within my industry where I have this experience already? If it's 18 months experience or 18 years experience, doesn't matter. Look for things within your industry that inspire you to achieve a higher level. You may need to return to school to get additional education, whether vocational training or secondary education or even graduate level work. But everyone, I think, finds themselves in this stagnant position in their career at some time or another. I can speak to that. It was 20 some years ago. Be aware of the other things in your personal life that are going on that a career change may not help address. You may have to deal with personal issues as well. Be very aware of yourself, what you're feeling. Don't always blame the industry or the career for some of the emotional challenges we sometimes find ourselves with. So that's about the most honest answer I can offer. At least that was my experience. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much for answering that for them. All right, the next question from the Q&A is one that it really speaks to me a lot too, because I come from a small town extremely, so it's kind of nice to see it. So this is from, let's see if I can even pronounce this. I think it's Cathodin? Yeah, thank you. I'm terrible at that, but Javner. So they asked, it's a big world of clear fields and companies. How should one coming from a small town find opportunities across the United States?
I'll take that one, being someone that also came from a town of less than 1,000 people, and about half of those people were Amish. So, I went to Chicago because big city, big business. You throw yourself out there, but I was chasing opportunities and chasing passion. And in order to do that and to have the courage to do that, find what you're passionate for. That will create a bridge that will lead you to your next opportunity. Just don't take no for an answer. Just because you're from a small town doesn't mean that you can't grow outside of that town. And just be courageous. I have to say, again, I bring it up. You will fail, but at least you're trying. Failing is okay, but just get out there, put yourself out there.
Yeah, Trevor's certainly brave going from a town of 1,000 straight to Chicago. And most people probably wouldn't do that, or that's outside of their comfort zone, but there's probably a lot of stops in between too, right? And so even as I think about our company, right, we're located all across the US, and some of the places we are located are in Baltimore and Chicago, but then we're also in like Spokane and a couple of small cities across, the middle of the country. So there are other opportunities, and maybe you just take a stair-step approach to make sure that you're comfortable. And I think, again, Trevor's super brave. I don't know that I would be able to do that, right off the bat, but kind of know your limits, but then also know or find some type of support system as well.
Good point.
All right, thank you two so much for answering that question. So the next question that I have is for the entire panel, and it is from an anonymous attendee. And that is, how many years of schooling did each of you have to do?
I can take that. I had my high school degree, and then I had my bachelor's, so 4 years in business management and administration.
I'll add to that, enter the industry with a high school diploma, pursued an associate's degree on my own just to keep busy and keep my mind busy. Went and got in direct sequence a bachelor's degree and then a graduate degree, master's degree in instructional design to enable me to do the new job I had taken on when I moved to the National Trade Association. So I would say it depends on what your career goals are. You can do it proactively and put yourself in a position to apply and promote yourselves, or you can do it reactively like I did, which I would advise not to do. So
I would say, so I had an associate's degree in drafting and design, and my bachelor's was in project management. And I would say, obviously, the drafting and design was pretty useful because it allowed me to learn more about AutoCAD. For project management, I think it just kind of taught me some general kind of skills, you know, more about dealing possibly with different trades or different maybe companies that I work with, you know, as part of working on a project. And then when I was at my first job, they actually offered me the opportunity to pursue an engineering degree. I started working on that, but then I kind of came to the realization that it probably wasn't, like, becoming an engineer wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to grow along a different path. So you know, possibly if you find a job that offers to, you know, either pay for school or reimburse or maybe push you toward a certification, you know, that could be very valuable. Because I know there was a question in there about, you know, student loans and debt in order to pursue a degree. And I think I'm piggybacking off Rashana's answer about finding jobs that possibly allow certifications or, you know, pay for school or reimbursement. And that could definitely be very useful. So I just wanted to echo that.
Yeah, for me, right after high school, I started a bachelor's degree, year and a half into it, joined the military after I came off my first tour, finished up my bachelor's. A while before I decided to pursue my master's in organizational change leadership. And really, I made that choice because I was looking long term to say, what role do I want to have, you know, 5, 10 years from now? I want to be involved in making these really big business decisions and helping the organization get along. So I chose to do that. And then kind of in the interim, I also got a certification. And there's a certification for everything, I think, almost these days. So I think somebody else asked, hey, like, if school is like not really my thing, how can I still be successful? Even as it related to getting a graduate degree or a master's degree, had I not had all of that work experience, it wouldn't hold the same, I think, value for me, because they're talking about these terms and concepts, and it makes it so much more valuable. And you can say, oh yes, I deal with this on a day-to-day basis, or this is how I would do this in this specific scenario. Also, same thing with the certification. Of course, certification, less time, less money, but still shows that, hey, you're proficient at whatever it is that you want to do. So it really just depends on what you want to do and how you want to get there, and then knowing your strengths.
All right, thank you so much all for answering that question. So I think we have time for one more before I have to wrap up. And this is one that was asked in the Q&A, which is, what are the steps or courses for students to prepare in order to become an engineer? And then it says, thanks panel, so thanks you all.
A lot of math. I know that for a fact. A lot of math, you know, physics, probably go down the list. I think just, you know, Man, yeah, definitely a lot of math. I kind of I stopped pursuing the engineering degree before I got that far and had to learn exactly how much math. Possibly some of the other panelists can answer some of that questions, especially seeing the qualifications needed for certain jobs. So I'll let them take that from there.
Cecilia, if I can add to that, if I may, another informal resource for specific industry education and training, whether it's engineering, construction, architecture, whatever the discipline is. And that is through the National Association for your particular industry. I happen to be the only trade association represented in this segment, but American Institute of Architects, professional engineers, the different societies and associations that are specific to an industry are probably the most powerful and most helpful resources in education, training, and information that you can get for any industry. A specific school may have a particular curriculum set by the local needs of that industry, but on a national level, the best practices, the disciplines, the intimate knowledge and skills that you need, and the information to keep you current in your industry typically comes from the power of being a member in an association. Student memberships are common in most associations. It's true in our association as well. Pursue that. Get engaged in your industry at that level to broaden your horizons, study more in-depth specific knowledge that applies to the work that you do. I think that's something I'm very much an advocate for, and would encourage everyone to pursue that. So thanks for that moment.
Thank you so much for answering that. All right, so I promised that I would end this event on time today, so I'm gonna wrap things up. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and a big thank you to all of our panelists today who took the time out of their busy schedules to come and answer all of these amazing questions for us and give us all a bunch of advice. Hopefully you all had an extremely successful welcome to the IndusTEA experience. So thank you all so much for coming, and don't forget to engage in the SkillsUSA Connect Career Cluster Forum. Say that 5 times fast. Geez, I can't apparently. Also, if you ever want to reflect back to this video, write some notes, get some great stuff, this will be also posted in SkillsUSA Connect. So again, I cannot thank you all enough for being here. Thank you all so much for participating into our panels. Hopefully you all learned so much. And as well, I don't know if any of you saw in the chat, make sure that you fill out that little form for us. We really appreciate it. We would appreciate your feedback so much. So thank you so much to our panelists again. Thank you all. Have a fantastic day, everybody.
Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. Your love is too high, bring me down, can't none bring me down. I said, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Come on, come on, come on. It might seem crazy what I'm about to say.